Hello, and welcome back to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am Hollis. With me, as always, is Dave. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Hollis.
I love that shirt, Dave. Is that a chorizo lightning shirt?
That is correct, sir. My design. It is based on a band that never was to be, a Clash cover band based on a misheard lyric, Chorizo Lightning. I'll sing it for you. Chorizo Lightning.
Rock the Casbah.
Yes,
Rock.
yeah.
In the original is Sharif Don't Like It.
Sharif Don't Like It. My friend Timmy and our friend Vanessa told us that misheard lyric, and we loved it. And we were the type of guys who immediately made T-shirts for our cover bands, but never made the cover band.
That's great. That's the most fun part of a band.
Always the business card, never the business.
Yeah, I am rocking the PCG WGBH Boston-inspired public television shirt.
I can always hear that synth music in my head.
Yeah. So this week, Dave, we had another movie planned. You folks are going to find out what that is later. But I wanted to stay in the 80s, which is where you and I were so happy for a number of years. Not as happy as the 70s, but still.
The 70s leaked into the 80s. That's one of the reasons we love the 80s.
Yeah, speaking of which, this movie has a bit more 70s than it does 80s. It is from 1981, and it is George Miller's Australian post-apocalyptic thrill ride, The Road Warrior, a.k.a. Mad Max 2, everywhere but the U.S. In the U.S., it was
released
The Road
in
Warrior.
America as The Road Warrior because they figured no one saw Mad Max.
Yeah, and they were probably right.
Yeah,
it
wasn't huge. Yeah,
I would have bet money it was 83 or 84, this film, but I guess that's when I saw it the most. I would watch it on video or cable over and over again.
I'm surprised it's 81 because I was young in 81 and I saw it in the theater. In a little town called Thornwood. I saw it there maybe 5, 6, 7 times. I mean, once a kid like me saw that, I was going back and going back and going back.
This film opens with something I had forgotten. It opens with a newsreel of sorts. It's black and white primarily. And it says, 2 mighty tribes went to war. It really covers its ass. It doesn't name nations. But you know that an atomic bomb was involved. It's very Planet of the Apes.
Several.
Yeah, or several. And then somewhere in the middle of that, it bleeds into just showing clips from Mad Max, the film prior to this, and how Mel Gibson's character, who is Mad Max, lost his wife and child. And what's the great line they use?
He lost it all in the roar of an engine.
I love it.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense that the footage of the world falling apart bleeds into Mad Max, because it's actually in watching that where I realized, like, oh yeah, I guess Mad Max was about the first Mad Max, the original. It occurs on the cusp of things really going to shit.
Yeah, he's fighting off the world that this has.
Yeah, until he retires from the force, he is trying to stave off the apocalypse.
Right.
The apocalypse is really the bombs going off. The apocalypse is human beings going feral after the fact.
Right. Speaking of feral, the narrator of this film is an adult version of a feral kid. They just call him the feral kid that we see in this movie. He's like maybe 8 or 9 years old. I think in real life, the kid is like a year younger than me. What are your thoughts on using him as a narrator? Because in all the feral children cases I found on In Search Of and elsewhere, learning to speak past a certain age is impossible. But maybe in the post-apocalyptic world, Dave, anything can happen, I guess.
I think I wouldn't read too much into its situation as far as learning to speak after. Maybe he did speak, but he doesn't speak because of trauma.
Oh, yes. I love that, Dave.
Though I have to say, I don't know how much of the feral kid's utterances are his own or are added after the fact or whatever, but his grunts are terrific. Pig-like snort, and he has like a bit of a little turned up nose.
Yeah, no, he was well cast.
Yeah, he's well cast. He has amazing hair.
Yeah. It's like right out of American Gladiators. His hair,
Yeah,
it's
it is
just it
wavy.
is rock and roll.
It is so rock and roll. He looks like a member of Van Halen, like a dirty remember that
Yeah.
Van Halen video with all the kids playing Van Halen? There was like Hot for Teacher, I think, had all
Yeah.
kids. Yeah, he's like little baby Van Halen.
Yeah. Van
Uh,
Ferrell.
yeah, he's great.
Yeah. After the newsreel, when the film proper kicks in earnest, you might as well be watching a silent film. You know, there's not much dialogue and there's not much needed, but it's one of those visceral thrill rides they talk about, Dave. And years before a GoPro was a thing, this film sort of presages the GoPro in the way you could shoot things. It's like a skateboard video at times. It's just amazing and dangerous. It looks dangerous.
Yeah, I think the thing that you would most attribute to the action sequences of this movie being successful, I would attribute it almost entirely to the bravery of the actors and the stuntmen and the crew.
If you told me 3 cameramen died making this, I'd be like, "Oh, sure. I get it. Yeah,
I think the worst injury is a badly broken leg,
that's amazing."
which you watch happen.
Right? They
Yeah.
they had to use it.
Yeah, they absolutely had to use it. It was the guy who flew off his bike, his feet hit a car, which starts
Mhm.
him spinning in air. When he landed, he badly broke his leg, apparently, from what I
Right.
hear. But yes, it presages the GoPro. You're filming this stuff with these huge machines. It's really impressive.
It really
And
is.
at times, to get the look of speed, he resorts to speeding up the film.
He does. You
And
can tell when he does it too. Orson
mhm,
Welles used to call it pulling frames. Hitchcock used to do it. It's just you take out every other frame for a while and it just
mhm.
speeds everything along, but it gives it a herky-jerky motion, which
Your
works in a weird way.
yeah, and in some of the scenes, you know, I'm like, "Oh, I think he made a decision. I think he made a decision." But your eyes and your brain are very good at spotting wrong physics. You don't even
Right.
realize it until someone shows you and you're like, "That's not how something
Yeah.
bounces. That's not how something falls."
But also it makes sense at certain points when he does it because you're like, oh, that's, yeah, he turned on the nitrous tanks. So of
Mhm.
course I'm like, I can't see that quickly. My eye can't process it all.
Right, maybe
So it's
that's
like,
why it looks weird. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So it's very well done.
I
Yeah,
didn't find it distracting, really.
no, a fantastic job by George Miller, the director, who did the first Mad Max. He kicked off the Mad Max franchise and kind of put them on a global stage because this was a big hit in America.
Australia knew George Miller had a thing, and Australia cashed in on it, I think, and did a great job.
Yeah, outside of koalas and wallabies, I think George Miller's franchise was their big export. You know, the character of Mad Max. First of all, I was not a big fan of the original Mad Max. It was kind of it didn't
It was
speak to
too
me. All
cringy for me.
yeah, too cringy. And all my friends who loved films, like you and I, have some real film aficionado friends, or at least did back then. They all sang the praise and were like, "Ah, Road Warriors too mainstream. Mad Max was real pure and whatever." I just found Mad Max uninteresting. This was an epic. This is like Conan the Barbarian. This was like a massive
Yeah, it's
epic.
funny because story-wise, yeah, it's light. I say light because I don't wanna say thin. It's thin on story, sure, but, like, it should be thin on story. It's just the world's first car chase only movie. It sets up a
Yeah.
car chase, it does the car chase, and then the movie's over.
Well, for
It's v
years, that was action films, was just a
Mhm.
car chase. There's one in Bullet, which set
Right.
the
Yeah,
tone, and then
Bullet,
it's like
absolutely.
Friedkin was like, "We got to outdo Bullet," and the French
Mhm.
Connection had that amazing car chase. And then after that, you get the Blues Brothers, and you get Silver Streak, and you get all these like Smokey and the Bandit. I see this as a Western, and the cars are horses. And
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
very much the cars are as big a star as the actors in here. The Interceptor?
Absolutely.
Come on.
Oh, I
Tell me
know.
about the Interceptor.
Yeah, it's it's such a smart move. It's a 19 and this is the people are gonna say, "It's actually," but as far as I know, it's a
Mhm.
1973 Ford Falcon, but it's not just a regular Ford Falcon, it's this rare coupe that was only available in Australia and New Zealand or something. They only made 900 of them or something like that.
So it's
It's
exotic.
It's exotic. So not everyone's going to have it. Not, you can't just go buy one because you liked it in the movie. You can't just find it in the penny saver or wherever. Penny saver is eBay on paper. For those of you who
For all the kids.
are unfamiliar with the penny saver. So just an excellent choice for a car. It kills me. In the first scene, the headlight covers or headlight glass is one of the most unique things on this car, and he smashes them in like the second scene. Yeah, and then just interesting customized car after car after car. My favorite being there's a Ford F-100. It's a chopped back pickup truck, red with a snake painted on the side. I think it's the truck that we mostly see.
Wes is shooting arrows out of a...
Yes, the arrow cannon gun is this Ford F-100, also a somewhat rare pickup by then, and just gorgeous and so unique. Yeah, the cars are fantastic in this.
Yeah. You know, this film, it didn't just influence other films, it influenced everybody. It was a big hit here. And it even influenced the stage costumes of Motley Crue.
I'm so glad you said that.
And we get most of that the second we see the Mohawk dude, who is Wes, played by Vernon Wells, who is awesome. He made an awesome cameo in Weird Science, too. Basically,
one of the best cameos of all time. Yeah, absolutely.
But before we even get to the main kind of battle for the refinery, we meet his character with Mad Max on the road. He's trying to outrun him. They're battling over a tanker of gas. And I mean, Lord Humongous is the leader. But when I think bad guys from Road Warriors, I think of Wes.
Yeah, he's the dog of war. Once again, you have made me unleash my dogs of war.
Very Shakespearean.
It's funny that you said Motley Crue.
Let's slip the dogs of war.
When we were talking about it as kids, we referred to Wes's boyfriend/girlfriend as Vince Neil. We were like, oh, that scene where Vince Neil gets it in the head with a boomerang.
Girls, girls, girls. Yeah. Speaking of the boomerang, that is such a bizarre little sidebar to the movie. It's almost like, time out, everybody. We want to catch it for a minute. Wes loses his boyfriend, and another character, the crier, I believe, loses his fingers.
Oh, Toady. He's a toady.
He's a toady. And everyone laughs. Even he laughs because that's how fucked up this gang is. And it's just kind of understood that this little weird interlude is happening. And then the feral child jumps and goes away.
He does a backflip into his burrow.
Into his lair.
Apparently, he's been tunneling around. He has little escape tunnels and trenches that he travels around. So he's really the only guy who goes outside the complex.
Right. It's bizarre.
Yeah, but that whole boomerang thing, I feel like George Miller was probably like, I really got something with this boomerang kid. This is good. He's practically a superhero.
He probably also got a grant from the Australian film industry, and you had to use something Australian, and he used a boomerang.
All right, we're cutting the Kung Fu kangaroo. And
I'm not having kangaroos.
There is one kangaroo in the movie. There's a dead kangaroo next to the tanker.
Yeah.
The disabled tanker. Do you remember when the boomerang kid, the feral kid, is inspecting, the gyro captain has landed within the complex?
Yeah, it's expecting
the boomerang blades. Kid keeps looking at the blades, and he's like, this would make a good backup boomerang.
Yeah. Speaking of the gyro captain,
Bruce Spence,
who's great. For his teeth alone, he deserves some sort of award.
Gosh.
But he very quickly thinks he has to drop on Max. He ends up as Max's prisoner. My favorite scene in the movie probably is the Dinky Dye dog food scene, this canned dog food. Mel Gibson's character opens it, begins eating it, and the look on his face, you would think he was enjoying a gourmet meal. He is so thankful to have it. It speaks to the wasteland and what a rare treat this is to have potted meat that was protected from the elements.
Such an important, one of the most storytelling scenes in the entire movie is relishing his first big bite. Dinky Dye meat and veggies. His first bite, he swishes it around in his mouth. He loves it. It's so good. And I have to say, this does not point out how far Max has fallen. This
No.
points out where humanity is at.
Yeah.
The
Because the
gyro
captain,
captain,
yeah,
yeah,
the gyro captain is so excited. He can't wait to get down on that. What does he
he
pull out?
yeah, he produces a wooden spoon from his jacket of many tricks, from
While
his
the
Inspector
dog's
Gadget
nose,
jacket,
while the dog's snout is in the can eating what's left.
vigorously licking the inside of the
And the
can.
captain is not the least bit dissuaded by this. He's
No,
like, okay,
no.
I'll wait my turn. And then we cut to him after, and he's like got two greasy fingers with this slop on it. And he's
Yeah.
just like enthralled. And he's like, okay, that was good.
It's an amazing set of scenes. One, Max relishes the dog food, setting up where society is at with a bite.
Yeah.
Scene two, throwing the can and the dog eating it and the gyro captain not being able to get it away from the dog, setting up the pecking order of the three of them.
Mm-hmm.
Scene three, the one you just said, the two fingers and the greasy dog food, and he is not going to miss an ounce of it because it's
Right.
so good. And then I say, scene four, the gyro captain produces a small handkerchief from his jacket and wipes the corners of his mouth because he still considers himself a member of society.
A brief glimpse of civility that he
Remember
is still,
lingerie?
yeah. Well, speaking to the pecking order, there's that great shot of when they're riding in Max's car and he's got it booby trapped, and there's the shotgun facing the gyro captain's face. He's all tied up. There's a string from the trigger going to a little bone in the dog's mouth. And
one of those Teflon dog bones.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then at one point, the gyro captain sees a hare jumping in the road, and he's like, "No, don't look at the hare. Don't look at." He's like, "Good dog,
good dog, good dog."
The dog turns basically, and he's like, "All right, all right." And
Yeah.
it is wonderful. And then later, the big payoff with
Yeah.
the shotgun.
It was empty all this time. That's deceitful. Low.
And he keeps wanting to partner up with Max. That's the thing. He's like, but we're partners. We're this, we're that. He thinks that any amount of time spent with Max and his dog engenders some kind of brotherhood. And that's the first time that we learn about Max, that he is not a joiner. This is a dystopian universe. This is a post-apocalyptic future. And yet you have a refinery with a group of people holding themselves in their little castle keep, and they all consider themselves a family. You have a roving band of the ugliest slice of humanity, these people that kill and rape and torture, and they consider themselves a family. Yeah. They have boyfriends and girlfriends, and they, at one point,
pretty progressive, even
very progressive.
Yeah.
At one point, Lord Humongous even hugs Wes and is like, "Oh no, no, my child, no, this is not." He talks lovingly to him. Calm down.
We'll have our revenge, my son. Yeah.
And so even when Max is offered to join this family at the refinery, he says no. He wants to keep it transactional. Just give me enough juice to carry with me. It speaks a lot about Max, and I keep drawing this analogy to Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name from the Dollars trilogy. I don't know what makes him tick, Dave, because he's going to keep driving alone, and even when he has gas, the gas will run out again, and eventually there won't be another tank to siphon.
Yeah, you've mentioned this just in general conversation, like before we even knew we would do a podcast on this. You've mentioned like what is Max's, like, what's his end game?
To what end? Yeah.
Yeah. He personally, my feeling is, thank God that he has no end game. Thank God he is laser focused on this useless endeavor, because the alternative is that these interactions with this group of people melts his heart, and he says, "I've been afraid to get close to someone ever again for fear of losing them," and that would have been terrible.
No, that would ruin him.
Saccharine garbage, and I wouldn't have been into it.
Yeah.
So you kind of need Max to just be laser focused on this futile life of his, which I think George Miller is fully aware of, and which is why you got a bunch of fanboys going, "Hey, why is Mad Max Fury Road about some chick?" It's like, because Max isn't worth following. He's not worth
No,
following. He quickly
no.
becomes uninteresting.
Yeah, there's
I'm
nothing
fine
there.
with that. By the way, I love Fury Road. I think Fury
Mhm.
Road was fantastic. Anything that we pick on when we're talking about Road Warrior, oh, they had to speed it up a little. Oh, they had to do this, they had to do that. All that is fixed with money and experience, and George Miller gets to make this
And
masterpiece.
fixing it and revving it up, like souping it up under the hood for the time we're living in now by having the lead be a woman.
Sure. Yeah.
That even adds another layer to it that I really love.
Yeah, and
Um,
we are not your, I forget what it was. We are not your breeders or whatever.
mhm.
He's got captive breeders. Oh, the guy, what's his name? The main evil guy in Fury Road. They used the actor Toe Cutter from Mad Max. They took him from Mad Max, took him over the Road Warrior, and put him in as.
Oh, wow.
But anyway,
Speaking of women in this universe, I really want to shout out a couple of women who were part of the family of the refinery. And one of them is Virginia Hay, who just plays
yes,
Warrior Woman. She is strong as fuck. And like you get the impression that when Papagallo, their captain, finally dies off or ends up leaving, she would be the next in line. She is
yeah.
just totally
I
smart and capable and badass.
Yeah, and George Miller named her Warrior Woman, which I think points to the fact that he considers her at least as strong as Max, and probably more, obviously socially better adjusted than
Yeah.
Max. I'd also point out that Virginia Hay, for sci-fi fans, plays Zahn in
Mm.
Farscape, the 800-year-old purple priest,
Okay.
who's quite good in Farscape. I
Yeah.
loved Farscape.
Oh, I bet she
Um,
is. Yeah, she's
which
gorgeous here. She is really good. And she and Mad Max seem like flip sides of the same coin. And I guarantee you, if this was a Hollywood movie, she would be like Stands with a Fist to his Dances with Wolves, and
mm,
they would hook up. He would join them. He'd be the new de facto leader with her, co-leader.
When I was a kid, I used to refer to her as Max's love interest as a joke.
Right.
Um,
It's the closest they come to it.
That's why I referred
And
to
he
her as
gives her a
Max's.
look when she's like, "I'll take over now," and she goes to the flamethrower.
Yeah.
You can see, I'm sorry, I distrusted you. You're all right. And
Mhm.
he gives her a look almost like, hey, should I rejoin humanity? No.
I call that the love scene.
Yeah,
That
it is.
instant, that
Yeah.
sparkle in his eyes, the love scene.
Right.
That's it.
Speaking of love scenes, there's also another woman in this, Arky Whitley, as the captain's girl, they call her. She's
Oh,
just a beautiful young girl. I call her Baby Spice. She looks
oh,
just
that's
like
so
Baby
perfect.
Spice.
That look, that outfit, and that accent all work for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the gyro captain is trying to get her to go to fly literally away with him. And she's like, no, this is my family.
There's a really nice thing about the gyro captain is that he was like, "Hey, I've got a helicopter. Let's sneak off together, honey. Come on, we can leave all this
Yeah.
behind." And then she's like, "No, you know what? I'm realizing I gotta stay." And he's like, I guess I'll stay too." Like, wow.
I'm not finding anything better than Baby Spice out on the
Yeah, yeah,
wasteland.
I'm gonna stick with it.
But she's more than just this shrinking violet. She speaks up for herself later.
Yeah, she has a great line. She has one of the first lines that stuck with me when I was watching it was Papagallo is trying to keep morale up and trying to convince everyone it's still worth making the fight. And she has that it's no use, Papagallo. Every day we get weaker while they get stronger. It's finished. It's
Coming out of
in a
her,
movie
it's
that
right.
has very few scenes, that's a big important line. And it's from a
Yeah.
woman and it's a voice of reason. Women are treated well, out there with the vermin on machine, there are women standing there, and they're not all owned by someone. There are women in that group as well. And this is 1981.
Right. Let's just talk a little bit. We have to call out the Lord Humongous, aka the Warrior of the Wasteland, the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, as he's called in there. He is a ridiculously built bodybuilder, very Mr. Universe looking, except he's wearing a Jason hockey mask He's got
made
like
of
a neck
tin
brace.
or something. Yeah, bizarre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's odd. But he's bald, except he has all these wispy hairs, like he was out of Chernobyl or something.
People do bring up the possibility that he is somehow perhaps like the blasts, the nuclear blasts that got the world where it is now. Perhaps he was
Right.
closer to one of them.
Right. Or perhaps he
Um,
caused it.
yeah, I mean, and then there's even a theory that he is Max's buddy Goose from the original movie Mad
Oh,
Max,
wow.
because Goose was burned badly burned, and that was the top of his head is giving a hint to the fact that that's burned up Goose.
When you said that, my first thought was Goose from Top Gun. And I'm like, oh, he wouldn't do that. Great
uh,
balls of fire.
oh, that's funny. They're both sort of. That's actually, yeah. I never really thought about that. That both of those gooses are sort of Top Gun stole it. Yeah.
Yeah. The ending kills me. The first few times I saw it, I didn't really understand. Papagallo tries to get the feral boy to jump in his car, and he says to him, "Come on, it's over. We've won." That's a hint that Max isn't the key to their success and that this truck isn't going anywhere special. Max is a decoy.
I
But
believe it's a hint of several, but yes,
yeah,
go
but
on.
I didn't understand, and maybe I still don't understand if Max is in on the fact that he's a decoy, or is it just us, the audience, that didn't know?
Because I've had this movie in my head for 30 years. I
Hmm.
have a very like well thought out position, which is Max did not know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
and
seems
it's
to back it up. The
I
sand.
believe that I believe the fact that when they were asking Papago, who's going to drive the tanker? If he's not going to drive the tanker, who's going to drive the tanker? Papago says, "I will," and the guy is shocked because that's like the leader saying, "I'll take the suicide mission.
Mm,
You'll have to find a new leader after this."
right.
Um,
The warrior woman might be good, although she goes on it too.
right, yeah. She basically sacrifices herself. I mean, she's on the outside of the tanker. She doesn't have much hope.
I am still
Um,
mad at that guy with no legs for getting her killed.
it was a weird time for sort of comic relief. His hands catching on fire while he's trying to put his legs out,
Yeah.
and he had a bag of water that he could cut with a knife because he knew he was going to set himself on fire.
Also, the
Um,
way they set up the warrior woman, she was this badass who was like, she was all about killing people and the greater good. At
mm,
what point, when they're riding this tanker and she's riding shotgun, especially, is the greater good going to pat down a guy's limp legs that
yeah,
are on
yeah.
fire?
She maybe she had feelings for him.
Seems
Her
to be a
compa-
hole in the script, Dave.
I think that her compassion it tells the story that Max is in a
Oh,
better
God.
position because Max would never have gotten up to help that guy. Uh,
Well,
it's
here's
pivotal.
let me say my bigger hole in the script is they finally get to the truck. They're going to haul the decoy tanker out. At what point do they think it's a good use of man hours to fill that tanker with sand? And also, this tanker that they want to be a decoy, that they want to go as far away from the refinery as possible. At what point do they think filling it with sand, which will slow it down, is a good idea?
Well, I'm going to have to say that you have to make it heavy, otherwise the villains will notice that it's going so fast and maneuvering so easily.
How smart are these villains? Come
They're
on.
all physicists, man.
Yeah, that's
There's
true.
got to be at least one smarty in there and be like, that
Yeah.
tanker's moving awfully fast. I mean, I poke a bigger hole. You could just not blow up the refinery. And I think that
Mm.
most of the villains would be like, we've got a gas station. Why are we following a truck?
Well, they don't want
Um,
to leave it to him, but the better thing to do would be to, because you had that lame character who found the booby trap underneath Max's car, all they have to do is booby trap the thing to go once all of the gang take it over.
Booby trap it, not to blow up immediately, but to blow up 12 hours later or 24
Yeah.
hours later or a week later. Let them get the
Yeah.
party started,
Then you've got the ending of Jaws, Dave. Then you've got
right?
an audience cheering.
Yeah.
Smile, you son
Y-
of a bitch.
Yeah, but you also lose a lot. I mean, it all has
Yeah,
to come down to this moment. It
right,
has to be all or nothing on that car chase. So
right. And then we're left with
he did what he had to do.
right. And then we get the sad Partridge Family kind of
Well,
bus
I want
moving
yeah, I
along.
want to point out that like another hint is when the gyro captain rolls up, he's been shot down and his main blade, his up and down blade is broken, but
Right.
his forward blade still works. So he's now driving the copter as a car. Max is leaning against the trailer and he has just held his hand out and felt the sand. The gyro captain rolls up and looks at him and smiles. And Max does a great smile back. And Max smiles back and he's like, I mean,
Game respects game.
yeah, he's like, game respect. You got me. You
Yeah.
got me. Good
Yeah.
plan. Good plan. And it also like, I think it might have been the gyro captain who's like, wait, let's fill that with sand.
Yeah. Could have
And
been.
I think they're like, holy shit, you're brilliant. You're in charge because
Yeah.
he becomes the leader
He does. But at
when they're
that point,
driving
the
away.
only people
Yeah.
left are old men and like, old women.
Well, don't worry,
So,
nothing to do but breed.
yeah, that's true. The
But
ending is such a great way to leave Max because he looks so cool standing in the road. It's a lot cooler than seeing him opposite Tina Turner in Thunderdome.
ugh,
We don't need another hero, Dave.
we don't need another Thunderdome.
Mad Max was fine by himself. He's saying that that's the last time we saw the Road Warrior. And it's such a great way. And it's like, yeah, maybe he's out there still doing his thing. But that
Yeah, I like
that
that.
should have been it. But you can't blame George Miller. Make that money. Get that money where you can.
No,
He earned it.
actually, I think the next one the next one of these PCGs that we release is going to actually get into that. There's something to be said for making the movies you want to make and
Mhm.
making the movies that get you paid. You can
Right.
make them both. In fact, you should. And I, if you ever decided that you don't like George Miller anymore because of Thunderdome, just go see
Yeah.
Fury Road because I personally Fury Road is one of the greatest gifts I was ever given. Here I am, this huge fan of the Road Warrior. Everything about it is set up to make me hate a follow-up movie.
Any reboot,
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, a reboot, especially one after a passage of time.
Right.
Like, I'm in the perfect position to say, "Oh, don't do it. Don't ruin it." Blah, 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 blah. First of all, that's not really my nature. I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take more."
Yeah, that's not you.
Yeah. But when I went and saw it, I walked out of that theater like, wow, to get a huge dose of George Miller's Road Warrior all over again, that was
Mhm.
terrific. In fact,
Yeah.
I'm going to see Furiosa right after we're done here.
Nice.
The second of the
That's
new
great.
fran
Let
of
me
the
know if
reboot.
you sense any tension between her and Tom Hardy on screen.
Oh, yeah, yeah, you
I
got
want to
some
know if
theories?
it
You got
bleeds
some theories?
into the
All right.
screen because they really hated each other while filming.
Ah.
All right, Dave. Thanks
Hollis and
again.
Dave would like to thank you for enjoying Pop Culture Graveyard.